Good morning, everyone. We'll get going here in just a bit, so hang tight. I do already see a question. Someone's just asking to confirm if you're all muted. I believe so. If you are hearing other people, let me know, but everyone should be muted except for myself. So we'll hang tight. Let me know, though, if you are hearing other people right now. You shouldn't. But once again, we'll get going here in just a bit. All right, so good morning, everyone. Make sure I'm unmuted. Okay, yep, we are. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's wellness webinar. I think this is my fourth or fifth one now, so I'm very excited to be back. I love getting an opportunity to talk about health and fitness. It is my passion, something that I love to do. And so any excuse to be able to sit down and talk with this with people makes me excited. It's something that I love to do, like I said. So one thing that I always like to do, and I just want to let you know, at any point, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the Q&A or over in the chat. I'm going to try my best to keep a close eye on that as I'm going through this. And of course, if you have a question about what I'm talking about, I'm going to try to address it immediately. If not, definitely at the end. I like to make sure to have some time at the end as well to answer questions. So I hope to have, maybe 5-10 minutes at the end to answer any fitness related questions or especially something related to this topic. So for those of you who haven't heard me speak before, my name is Charles Burroughs, and I'm the Fitness Services Coordinator with University Recreation. I've been in this position for about 2.5 years now, going on 3. But even before that, I've been working in the health and fitness industry for about 8 years. So I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different sects of health and wellness, whether it was commercial fitness or corporate wellness. But throughout all that time, my focus has always been on working with either individuals or groups to make lasting changes and to promote healthy lifestyles. That has been my biggest focus and my biggest goal. I myself have not always been healthy or geared towards fitness. I think it was about 10 years ago where I really started to work on myself and to develop more healthy habits and start exercise regularly. And so I understand a lot of the struggles and the hardships that come with making behavior changes and learning to try and develop a healthy lifestyle. I understand that it can be a struggle at times, and really that's what today's topic is, how to stop the yo-yo effect. I think this is a really important topic because it's not just something that people who are new to exercise or new to fitness or new to nutrition experience. It's something that we can all experience at one time or another. I know a lot of fitness professionals who know a lot about this field still experience the yo-yo effect. I know that I myself have dealt with this on and off throughout the years. So it's something that definitely is not just conducive to a certain kind of people or demographic. We all can experience this yo-yo effect at some point or another. And so my goal with this webinar, with this presentation, is to give you some tools and some strategies to help work through that and to avoid those really big highs and lows that we often experience with exercise and nutrition. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. If I can go to the next slide there. There we go. So I think I skipped one. There we go. So first off, what is the yo-yo effect? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what I'm talking about here. Because the yo-yo effect, it's by no means a textbook or clinical definition, but it is a very apt description of this extreme alternating between two very different behaviors. Okay, and I guess I'll go ahead and throw out this disclaimer now, clarifying what I'm talking about. And this alternating between two behaviors, I'm not referring to an actual clinical diagnosis of a mental disorder. So for example, like bipolar disorder, while I do think some of these strategies can certainly help with conditions like that, there needs to be more resources and more help involved there. So when I'm talking about this yo-yo effect, this alternating and back and forth, I'm in large part talking about just the average person who can experience this when they're trying to adopt new behavior. So the yo-yo effect, that term was actually originally coined by a clinical psychologist out of Yale. And the reason he came up with this term is he noticed in a lot of his clients were experiencing this big back and forth with their dieting. Specifically, it was in regards to fad diets at the time. So these very extreme diets that his clients were trying, and you know, they would be on top of it and be focused, and then all of a sudden they would fall off, and then they'd fall off hard, and then they would jump back on it and do it again and fall off, and then they'd find a new diet, and there's just this continual cycle of up and down, just like a yo-yo. And while this is primarily originally focused towards dieting, I think it's just as applicable to fitness and really to other behaviors as well. Anytime that we are trying to adapt a new lifestyle or new behavior, we can experience this yo-yo effect. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll break that down here in just a bit. So first off though, you know, why does this happen? Why do we experience this extreme going back and forth between different behaviors? Is it because we have two different personalities and just alternate back and forth? No, of course not. For most of us, it's not that at all. For most, it's because we are trying to change a habitual behavior, something that is ingrained within us, oftentimes something that's been ingrained for many years. And so that right there gives us a big clue as to why we're going back and forth. It's because we're trying to change something that has been a part of us for oftentimes a long time. A lot of times this starting behavior, I guess the beginning of a yo-yo, it's likely something that's comfortable to us. It's something that is oftentimes stress relieving, if temporary. So a good example of this might be a specific unhealthy food, right? When we eat it, it makes us feel good. It feels like we get a little bit of relief from our stress. But oftentimes, right, it's only temporary. Like if we're procrastinating something, that initial procrastination feels good. It's like this little hit of dopamine or serotonin to our body that feels good. But then ultimately, it ends up making us more stressed, right? So while this starting behavior, this thing that we're trying to change, is often good and comfortable and familiar, it also, if we're trying to change it, right, then we've realized that it's also unhealthy, or that it might have negative side effects. Or not even that, it might just be that we've recognized that this behavior is a hindrance to our goals, to something that we want to accomplish and that we find is valuable. I think a good example of this might be, let's say that your goal is to start a regular exercise program. You want to start being more physically active, and you've looked at your schedule and you realize, okay, the best time I can do this is 6 a.m. every day, 6 a.m. And you've also realized that in order to do this, you've got to get a good night's rest. If you don't get a good night's rest, you won't wake up early, and if you don't wake up early, you won't exercise. But then there's a problem, and you realize that one of your habits or current behaviors is you love to stay up late and watch TV. You have a show that you love and you want to make sure to get that in because it's comfortable, it feels good, it's a good stress reliever for a long, stressful day. And so if you're trying to change that behavior, it in itself might not necessarily be bad. It might not necessarily be unhealthy to watch TV, but it might have negative side effects. You might not get enough sleep, or it's hindering your goal of that exercise program because if you are staying up late, you know you won't wake up and you know you aren't going to be able to do the exercise program you committed to. So that is in large part what we're dealing with here is we have this starting behavior that is comfortable and that it's familiar, but we also recognize that it is a hindrance and that it is negative to us. Now, continuing on with this though, as we see the second behavior, this other opposite end of the spectrum of the yo-yo, is something that we have decided is either healthier for us, maybe we learned that ourselves or we had a professional tell us, or is more in line with what we're trying to achieve. So maybe this new behavior, going back to that example, is going to bed earlier. We see that as one, probably being healthier because we get more rest, but also is more in line with that ultimate goal of exercising more. Now, just because it's healthier for us or in line with our goals, it doesn't make it easier, right? In fact, usually this new behavior that we're trying to engage in, it's uncomfortable. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. In large part, it's quite simply because it's new to us. We are very much creatures of habit and of comfort. And so introducing something that's new creates a new challenge for us. And it's something that instinctually we might be like, whoa, we don't want to do this. This is not what we're used to and what we like. Oftentimes, that new behavior is also inconvenient. Getting up early in the morning is not always convenient, right? Exercise in itself isn't always convenient. If it was, maybe we would do it more or already have been committed in the first place. And then also sometimes this new behavior, this something that we were trying to adopt or adapt to, it is depriving us of what was previously an enjoyment for ourselves, something that was comfortable. If you're used to eating food that's really unhealthy and it's comfortable and you get enjoyment out of that, then to give that up, you're depriving yourself. That's at least what your brain's telling you, right? A lot of different foods provide that serotonin, that dopamine release in our brain. And so when we are depriving ourselves of that, our brain is quite literally saying, whoa, hey, something's wrong. Why are you taking this away from me? And especially early on when we are trying to adapt to new behavior, our body is in a lot of ways going to be resistant to that change because it's not what we are used to. It's not what we've ingrained ourselves. And the reason that I'm pointing this out and talking about these two different things is because I think it really sets the stage for why this yo-yo happens. We are going from something that is comfortable to something that is uncomfortable, but we also know it's good for ourselves. So we keep coming back to it. We keep trying. And so we experience this back and forth. And I really want to drive a point home right now, and that's to say that if you experience the yo-yo effect, if you started a program and you failed, it is not because you are weak, not by any means. It's because in a very real sense, you're at war with yourself. You're at war with instincts and chemicals in your body that are saying, no, don't change. We like what you're doing now. And so understand that when we're trying to make a new change, if we fail at it, it's not because we are weak. We are at war, and hopefully we win the war even if we miss a few battles here and there. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the different strategies and things that I think can really help you avoid this yo-yo effect and really stick with a program. And first off, in order to be successful, in order to avoid falling off and yo-yoing back and forth, this new behavior must be a priority. I think this is possibly one of the most important points that I can drive home today, is that to really be successful in some sort of wellness or fitness program, you have to prioritize it. Because when push comes to shove, we just talked about the fact that a lot of times this new behavior is uncomfortable. And what we were doing before was really nice and stress relieving and comfortable. So to try to adapt something new is already going to be hard. And if we don't prioritize it, then when something comes up that can deter us, when an alternative choice comes up, it's very easy to take that and to stop doing what we were doing, and to go up and down and up and down. So we have to prioritize it. But this second point, I think, might even be more important to the first, and that is to make sure that fitness is appropriately prioritized. I think the best way to talk about this is from an example. So I know for myself, I'd already mentioned that about 10 years ago is when I really started to focus on fitness. Well, a little longer than that ago, I think it was my freshman year in college, I've been going back and forth for literally years. Since my childhood, I've always dealt with like self-image issues and my weight. And so it was always something that I had struggled with. And I kind of failed to adapt a healthy lifestyle for a long time. And right before I really got together, I remember I had this sudden strike of motivation. And I decided to do the P90X program. For those of you who don't know what P90X was, it's a program by Beachbody, and it's this extreme 90-day at-home exercise program where you work out basically 7 days a week, and you follow this strict nutrition plan, and it is intense. I mean, it is a lot. But I did it, and up to that point, fitness wasn't really a priority for me. But I did it. And after about 2 weeks, all of a sudden fitness went from being not much of a priority to being a pretty big priority. And then once I started seeing results, I started to get this high from it. I was so excited. I was feeling better. I had more energy. I was becoming obsessed with it. All of a sudden, fitness became my number one priority. It was all I could think about. I was always researching stuff. I was looking at articles. It became number one. I remember one of my coworkers at the time, we were doing the program together. And when we were at work, that's all we were talking about. I'm sure we were driving our coworkers crazy because it was quite literally an obsession. And as a result of that, my other priorities and other things in life were starting to get affected. I was putting so much emphasis on fitness and this new program that I was starting to neglect other aspects of my life. And I realize now in hindsight that that was just not sustainable. And I would argue not healthy either. And I think, a few weeks later, so maybe halfway through the program, I think I ended up like tweaking my back, and I had to take a break from the workouts. And because I took a break from the workouts, I took a break from the nutrition plan and basically just put the whole thing on hold. And I told myself, I'll start it as soon as I feel better. But once I stopped the workouts, I stopped feeling as good about it all. And then it became really hard to get back on it. And while there are a lot of factors involved to why that was the case, one of the big reasons was that I had started to associate progress and fitness success as having to be this obsession. That in order to get these results, I had to make it the number one priority. And so the task of getting back on track became so incredibly daunting because I had made it that way myself. I had made it such a big priority. And then when I finally took a break from it being number one, I realized that that wasn't a good place for me to be. And because I thought that's what was needed, I just totally fell off. And so I think the biggest or most important part of this step of prioritization is to make sure that it's not just a priority, but to make sure that it is appropriately placed among your hierarchy of priorities. And to drive this home, I actually have an activity. And I know this is a webinar and there's not a lot of opportunity for interaction here, and that's okay. But this is an activity that I like to do with clients that I know are struggling with this, and honestly something that I do myself from time to time, because obviously as you get older and as life changes, your priorities change too. But it's really a simple activity, and I really encourage you to actually do this. Grab a pen and paper or a sticky note, get your notes app out, and just list out all of your current priorities in life. It could be your relationship with your spouse. It could be your career, your faith. All of your major priorities that you can think of, just create them all in a pool, put them down, and just try to get them all out there. And notice I put make sure fitness is in there somewhere. I assume if you're tuning into this webinar that your personal health is something that is important to you. And fitness is a big part of your health. And so I encourage you to include this in your list. Once you've got that list down, I ask that you rank these from most important to least important. This is definitely the hardest part of this activity because it can be kind of hard to decide what's most important to you. But this is a crucial step in this process. Ask yourself, what is the one thing that is going to come first to me no matter what? I will always choose this when given two alternatives. I will always make this choice. And when you got that one ranked, go on to the next one and say, what is the most important thing to me except for number one? And so on and so forth. Now, I can't tell you exactly where fitness is going to fall on that list for you, but I hope that at least makes the list and that is in a spot that makes sense to you and that says, I'm not gonna neglect these other things that are really important to me, but it is high enough on my priority list that I'm going to choose it over things that are less important. So for me, I think fitness falls around like in the 5 to 7 range. Of course, it depends what you have on your list. But for me, that is sustainable. It is somewhere that is important enough that I'm going to be able to do it regularly, that I prioritize it, but I also have things in my life that are more important to me and that I'm going to put more emphasis on. And I think that is healthy. I don't think it is healthy to make it number one. That's just my opinion here, but I don't think it is healthy or sustainable to have it as number one. And I think a lot of the clients that I have worked with, that they have struggled with this part, and is finding an acceptable place where it is important and that is a priority, but it is not number one. And lastly, I want you to just adjust and reflect. It's going to take some time to figure out where you want each of your priorities to go. But the whole goal of this is to, one, figure out where fitness falls in line with everything else in your life. And two, that you have this baseline anytime you're dealt with a decision relating this new behavior. And when you're faced with that decision, you could say, okay, is staying up late and watching TV, is that more important to me than my fitness? And that might be a silly example, right? Because the answer is probably going to be fitness. But let's say if staying up and watching TV is the only time you get to spend with your spouse or your significant other. If that's the case, then suddenly that activity might take precedence over early morning workouts. And if that's the case, that's okay. Maybe we can reassess and find another way to still address our fitness without it interfering with a priority that's more important to us. So finding out where fitness lies in your priorities is really important and crucial. And I ask that you do that as soon as you can, because that's going to make a big difference in whether or not you experience this yo-yoing and back and forth. Does anyone have any questions with that? If not, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Perfect. Okay, so my next suggestion is to develop urgency. And I want to go ahead and specify, because the word urgency might be kind of anxiety inducing, and I certainly don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be something that causes stress or anxiety. Fitness should not be something that you're stressing about, right? We have enough things going on in our life that we don't need to make fitness one of those stressors, at least not emotionally. Physically, it's definitely stress. But we do need to develop urgency. And what I'm talking about, I think a good way to explain this is with a very simple question we should ask ourselves. And that is that this new behavior, this new thing that I'm trying to do, whether it's a nutrition plan or an exercise program, whatever it is, what can I do next that's going to move me closer to my goal? Notice I don't say today. I don't say what can I do tomorrow, what can I do this week, what can I just do next? And what this does is it requires a sense of immediacy. And I'm not necessarily saying literally right now. I know that button says act now. I'm not necessarily saying immediately right now, but what can I do as soon as possible, given that my other priorities are taken care of? And by adapting this and having this, we have an urgency about it. We say, okay, this is something that I need to address soon. It is something that is a priority to me. I think a good way to think about this is, let's say you have a meeting that you have to go to. It is a priority, and it's the day of. There's an immediacy to it. You've got to go and you've got to get it done. If that's the case, then you have some urgency there. And when you have that urgency, you are addressing it in an active mindset. And what I mean by active is you are actively engaging in ways to make sure it happens. Maybe you are getting up a little bit earlier. Maybe you are getting dressed a little sooner. Maybe you're making sure that you have enough gas to get there in time. You're actively engaging in ways to make it successful. You're not taking a passive approach. If you can't find your keys, are you just going to say, well, I guess it's not meant to be, or I guess I just can't do it. I'm just not going to go to this meeting. No, of course not. Instead, you're going to adapt a problem-solving mindset and say, okay, here's a roadblock. Here's something that is preventing me from getting to this thing that I've decided I need to do, and I'm going to find a way around it. Maybe it's get an Uber or find another car, whatever it is. But you're going to find something to make it happen. And so by developing a sense of urgency, we are saying that this is important to ourselves and that we are going to do something soon and as quickly as possible, even if it's something really small. If we're talking about fitness again, maybe it's as simple as, okay, work's over. I plan on working out tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get my workout clothes. It's a little thing to do that shows you have some urgency about it and says that I'm going to go ahead and take steps now to get me closer to that ultimate goal of working out this evening. And one thing I want to add to this is that we want to avoid a completionist mindset. And I put that in parentheses because I've been kind of struggling with what the right word I want to use here. But I think completionist is the best word I can say. And I'm not saying that completionist as in I need to complete something. What I'm saying here is a very common mindset that in order to do a program, it needs to be this complete thing, that it needs to be 30 days long, and I need to do every single day of it, that the nutrition plan I'm following, that I've got to make every single meal of the day perfect, and that if I don't, I fail. That is the problem I have with this attitude, is I have to do it all and I have to do it perfect or it's not going to happen. And I would say it's a little bit different from the word perfectionist, because it's more along the lines of, well, if I don't do it at all, or if I don't do it perfect, I'm just not going to do it. Let's say you're following a nutrition plan and it has 3 meals in it in the day and each meal is already planned and perfect. Well, if you wake up and maybe you forget about it, or you go and you have breakfast with someone, and you say, oh, well, I already had a donut. My plan's ruined. I'm just going to go ahead and scratch it for the day and start tomorrow. That completionist attitude can very likely set you back. The worst thing you can do is just say, well, I already started out in a bad place, so I'm just going to start over, or just take a break and start again on a different date. Instead, use urgency. Develop the urgency and say, okay, you know what? I may have had a bad meal this morning, but what can I do next? What can I do next as soon as possible I can do to get back on track? And maybe that's go ahead and make sure your lunch is ready to go and then get right back on it as soon as you can. Urgency is a very important step that I think will make a big difference if you start to develop it. And like a lot of these things, it becomes a bit of a skill that you have to work on and develop. It doesn't necessarily happen right at the beginning, but if you continue to work on it, you will find that it becomes easier and easier to develop this sort of attitude of having an urgency about what you're trying to accomplish. The next thing I have, my next suggestion to help avoid the yo-yo effect, is to celebrate the small things, the small successes. Every big accomplishment, every big goal that we have, especially in regards to nutrition and fitness, it can be divided into a lot of small incremental successes. And it's important that we can step back and accept and acknowledge and enjoy each of these little improvements and successes that we experience. Think about it, think back to your own education. Think about all that time that you spent from kindergarten to what you've accomplished now. On the big picture, that is a huge accomplishment, right? Going from kindergarten to middle school, high school, undergraduate. For some of you, maybe you have your master's or your PhD. That is such an incredible accomplishment and a big undertaking when you look at it as a whole. But do you really think it would have been fair if you had only waited and celebrated and considered yourself successful when you reached the end, when you finally got that certificate? Of course not. I don't think a single one of us would have said that would have been a good idea, and to consider yourself a failure until you reach that point. Instead, we very likely celebrated the little successes of finishing kindergarten or first grade, or getting that grade back that was better than you expected, seeing the fruits of your hard work in front of you. It's really important that we can do that with our own health and fitness, and to celebrate these little things and use that as fuel to move forward. Yeah, so like I said, accept and enjoy the small improvements that you experience along the way. I remember one of the classes I took in kinesiology was this class called exercise physiology. Basically, it's the science of exercise. And I remember one day my professor talking about all the different adaptations that happen after just one single workout. After one workout, our muscle fibers are tearing down and rebuilding to be stronger. Our heart and our lungs are learning how to absorb oxygen better and better fuel our workouts. After every workout, our brain is adapting to that exercise to create better connections to our muscles, to have better coordination, and to be more efficient. Each and every workout, every step, even if it's just a walk, we are experiencing thousands and often tens of thousands of little adaptations in our body that is moving us in the right direction. And I think it's important to understand that and realize that. I knew that blew my mind, because it made me realize that while the program as a whole is great, each and every little step that we take is progress towards what we're trying to achieve. And I hope you start to develop that and to understand that each and every success that we experience along the way is going to get us closer to our goal. And very similar with this idea is to not be afraid to have multiple measures of success. Going back to the education, if we only considered the piece of paper that we got at the end of it as success, then that can be pretty discouraging along the way, because we don't have it up until that point. But think about all the other ways that we can measure the success of our education. Individual grades. We can look at affirmation that we're receiving from friends and family. We look at the feedback that we get from our professors that say, hey, good job on this. All these different things are different ways of measuring our success and help us to continue to push forward. And when we're talking about fitness, maybe it's that we're not just focusing on just a number on a scale. In fact, I really encourage you not to do that, but to think about these other things that we look at that shows our progress. Maybe your ultimate goal was to lose weight, but maybe you also had high blood pressure. And when you start exercising regularly, you see that number go down. That should be motivating. That should be exciting and something that you should celebrate and see as another step in the right direction, because it absolutely is. The next thing I have, another suggestion I have, is to find your reset button and to use it frequently, put that in parentheses. Because the truth is that setbacks are bound to occur, often by our own volition. Sometimes not, sometimes other things come up, but a lot of times we experience this yo-yo effect because we made a mistake. We fall off the horse, so to speak, and we create a little dip in our progress. Maybe we take a few steps back. It's bound to happen, and it's going to happen because we aren't perfect. And like I said, we are trying to overcome a behavior that's been ingrained with us. So mistakes are bound to happen. But the worst thing that we can possibly do is to get in our own heads about what we just did. I have this picture of this goldfish here. I'm sure you're like, why on earth is that there? What does that have to do with this? Well, one, I think the picture's pretty hilarious. But two, and more importantly, is it actually reminds me of something a famous football coach said. I can't remember who it was. I don't think it's Nick Saban. But they said, in order to be a successful athlete, you have to have the memory of a goldfish, because a goldfish has a very short memory. It's like 3 seconds. And what we mean by that is when we make a mistake, we are able to rebound from it quickly. And that's especially true in sports. It's very momentum based. And if you get up in your head about it, then you're no longer able to focus on the goal at hand. And you are very likely to mess up even more and more. And it just snowballs and gets worse. Instead, what we need to do is we need to be able to, in a way, forget it. Have the memory of a goldfish. Be smarter than a goldfish, but have that memory. And so when we experience a setback, when something happens, we're able to accept it. We can learn from it. If we made a mistake, say, okay, well, why did that happen? If after work, rather than going and eating that meal you had planned, you decide to just go get something fast and easy. Well, then say to yourself, okay, well, one, I did it. Okay, yeah, it was a mistake. And two, say, well, what can I do next time to not do that? Is it maybe bringing some snacks to work so that I'm not absolutely famished when I go home? Or maybe it's that maybe I should have prepared it in the morning so that I don't have that dread of having to cook it when I get home. Learn from that mistake and then forget and move forward. It is really detrimental to ourselves if we continue to dwell and to beat ourselves up on the mistakes that we make. We do need to learn from them, but we cannot sit there and dwell on it, because we cannot be successful if we beat ourselves up. And so a key component to finding a reset button is to be able to forgive yourself. To be able to say, okay, you know what, you messed up. That's okay. Let's do better next time. It is a really important aspect to this whole thing, and that is being able to have a little bit of forgiveness. And I know myself, I'm pretty hard on myself. I expect a certain standard, and if I don't reach it, it's really easy to beat myself up. And I've had a lot of clients experience that too, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, is you're hard on yourself because you expect better things out of yourself. And while that's a good thing to have, make sure that you have some grace and that you're able to forgive yourself, so that when something happens, you say, okay, I messed up, learn from it, and more importantly, most importantly, move forward. So those are the big 4 things that I have, and I think each thing is really important. One is to prioritize, and not just to prioritize, but to make sure it is a priority at an acceptable level, that you find a place on your priority list that says, yes, this is important to me, but it is at a point that does not trump everything else. It is something that is sustainable for you. And it might be really high on your list. And if so, that's okay, as long as you know that you are able to maintain that and it is appropriate given the other important things in your life. I think that as we get older, as we grow up, we find that we get a lot more priorities and responsibilities. And so fitness is bound to shift a little bit here and there on our priority list. But make sure that we are making it a priority and that is at an appropriate place. And once again, make sure that we are developing that sense of urgency, that we are looking for ways to move in the right direction now or as soon as possible, that we can do things to get us closer and that we're not just putting it off. You know, with fitness, a lot of times the goals that we have and the changes that we see, they are slow. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think a lot of times subconsciously we say, well, because it's this long process, right, that there isn't any urgency. And I think that's a big mistake. It's easy to say, well, my goal is to lose 50 pounds. That's not something that's going to happen fast. It's going to take a while. And if we only think about that, then we can say, oh, well, then I'll just start Monday, or I can take a couple days off. And I think that's a dangerous mentality to start, because like I said, that can snowball. And also make sure that we are celebrating the small successes, that we are able to acknowledge all those little successes that we have, those little improvements that we make, because they are there. And if for some reason you aren't seeing those, or you aren't sure what to look for, reach out to someone. Reach out to me, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'd love to help you find different things to monitor and to measure, to see your progress. So it's not just this one single thing that we focus on. Because when we do that, we're very likely to yo-yo back and forth, because progress can take time, or at least reaching that ultimate goal. And then, of course, as I said, finding that reset button, being able to forgive yourself, being able to move on and readjust after we make mistakes, because they are going to happen. Absolutely 100%. Okay. One more thing before I open it up for questions, because I definitely want to have some time. I'll always get a lot of great questions in these webinars, and I want to make sure I have enough time to do that. But real quick, just a few things that we have going on with fitness services at UREC. We do have a program right now going on called Morning Mayhem. It's an outdoor boot camp style workout program. We're flipping tires, swinging sledgehammers. It's a lot of fun. I think this is an awesome way to get started on something regular. By no means does our program need to be the thing to get you started on a program, but I personally think it's a great opportunity to do that. So if you're interested in that, there are Mondays and Thursdays, and you can just buy a single class, because the program's already started, but you can just buy a single class and try it out, see what you think. And they are Mondays and Thursdays at 6 a.m. We do also have a program starting this summer called Summer Heat. It's an 8-week program, and it's a comprehensive program. So there are workouts. We're going to focus on a lot of different things. My goal for this program is to focus heavily on the educational aspect of it, so that we're not just working out, but we're learning about what we're doing, so that we can take these things that we learn in the program and we can apply it after the program, so that we continue to be successful and to develop those habits, so that this doesn't just become a yo-yo of, oh, I do a program, fall off, do a program, fall off. Instead, I want to provide some lasting habits and results. And of course, being the personal training coordinator, I got to say, we do have personal training available if you feel like that's something that can help you reach your goals. And also with that, we do consultations and assessments. So if you're looking for some sort of jump start to kind of get started, please reach out to me. That's my email address at the bottom, or my phone number as well. Okay, so questions. Like I said, I usually get a lot of good questions, so I definitely want to have some time for that. So you can put them in the chat right now, or Q&A. I hope that you take some of these tools and consider how you can use them to avoid yo-yoing and be able to create something that's sustainable. And a lot of times we think that it's got to be this big, intense ordeal, that we kind of over-prioritize it. And I don't want that to be that for you. I really want you to be able to find something that is sustainable. Maybe CrossFit or some sort of extreme program is not sustainable for you, and that's okay. Let's find something that's going to help improve your health and get you to a point that can get you moving in the right direction. Let's see. So I see Whitney says, what would you recommend for a newbie to fitness? Where would they start? So I would say one, you could go online and look for a program. But my recommendation would be to find someone who knows what they're doing and reach out to them. Maybe that is doing like a consultation with a trainer, or finding a friend that you know is an expert on the subject or who knows a lot about it. But really the first step in starting anything is creating some sort of game plan and figuring out what you can do. If you keep it really general, it's really hard to stick with that. Anytime I have a client that says, well, my goal is to be fit, I say, okay, that's great, but let's try to dive into that a little bit more. Let's try to make it a little bit more real, make it more tangible. And so I encourage you to do that. Find a goal that is real, that is tangible, and then create a game plan that's going to help you tackle it. The more specific you are, the better. And like I said, if you need help with that, if you're not sure where to start with that, find a professional and reach out. I'm more than happy to sit down and answer any emails you have, or talk to you about where to get started with something like this. Even if you don't buy personal training, that's okay. My goal here is to help people get started. Do you guys have any other questions, whether it's about the yo-yo effect, about personal training? I'd be more than happy to help. One person commented and said, I lost 100 pounds and sustained it for over a year, and then moved and gained some of those pounds back. I'm trying to remember how much progress I've made and keep moving forward. Congratulations on what you've achieved so far. And just remember that even though maybe you backtracked a little bit, that's okay. Think about how much you did to get to that point. And remember that you can get right back on it and move forward. Ask yourself right now, what can I do right now that's going to get me going in that direction again? Maybe it's something as simple as changing up what you were going to have for lunch today, or going for a walk after work when you didn't originally plan on it. Find something small that you can start doing right now. And a lot of times, in the same way that we snowball in the wrong direction, we can snowball in the right direction. Yes, but really, congratulations on that progress, what you've made. Someone just asked, how much time do you think would be best to start? And I assume you're talking about how much time to commit to it, like perhaps how long a workout. And I would say anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour. But the better answer is, what can you realistically maintain? If you worked out 2 hours every day, you know what? You'd probably get in great shape. But is that honestly sustainable for you? Probably not. I would say 20 minutes 3 times a week. That's a good place to start. And that's going to help snowball in the right direction. You can definitely get results from 20 minutes a day. And as you commit more to it, as you maybe find more time in your schedule, or even just increase the intensity of those workouts, you'll continue to get success. So 20 minutes is not a bad place to start, but make sure that you're finding a time that's realistic for you. One person just asked, can we get copies of these slides? Absolutely. I will make sure that Health Promotion and Wellness, Ashley Bowman, those guys over there have a copy of this, and they can send it out or post it on the website. I forget exactly how they do it, but I'll make sure that they get a copy of this so that you can as well. So, good question. All right, anything else? I'll hang out here for a bit. That's all I got for today, but like I said, I'm more than happy to continue asking questions as long as you're here. Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. Have a good day, Stephanie. Thank you so much, Emery. You'll have a great day. I hope this gave you a little bit of motivation, and even more so gave you some tools to think about and things that you can work on. Yes, sounds good, Terry. I'll be looking forward to a call from you. Have a great day, guys. Thank you very much. Someone did ask, how much is a consultation? So a consultation is $30, and a consultation can be honestly whatever you want it to be. So it can be an actual training session. It can be a goal setting session. So basically what happens is when you buy the consultation, which you can just do on our website, it's just urec.ua.edu. And if you play around on there, you'll find a link to the UREC shop. And then once you purchase that, a trainer will reach out to you and set a session. And they'll ask you what your goals are, what you want out of the consultation. For some people, it's more of like an exercise demonstration. So for an hour, we can take you around the gym, show you different pieces of equipment and how to use them. So a consultation can be pretty broad and really whatever you want to accomplish. And that's just $30. All right, make sure I don't have any more questions. Still looking though. Okay, one person did ask, do I need to be a rec member to get a consultation? You don't, but you will have to get a day pass if you wanted to come like into the weight room area and actually do some things like in the weight room. So if you just wanted to sit down with someone in the front lobby and kind of work on some things, I don't think that'll require a day pass. It's just a consultation. But otherwise it would require a day pass. The nice thing with that though is you're basically a member for the day, so you can go ahead and use the facility or do whatever. And that day pass is $10. So if you were wanting to utilize the gym as a whole, It'd be $40 for the consultation and the day pass. But if you're just going to sit down with someone in the lobby and go through stuff, you could probably just get the consultation, I'm pretty sure.